What's up, Region 4? This is Jeremy Chance with the Region 4 Communications Committee coming to you with another, our latest episode of our Black History Month conversation series. As you know, Black History Month is an opportunity to reflect and celebrate Black excellence, and Region 4 is no different as we're celebrating and highlighting our Black and African American colleagues throughout the region. Today, we're joined by Oscee Wheatfall and Jonathan Elliott. Guys, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, Jonathan, let's start with you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, name, title, location, and talk a little about your pathway to your current role.
Sure. So my name is Jonathan Elliott. I am originally from Huntsville, Alabama, graduated from the University of Alabama with a Bachelor of Social Work back in the old days, the early 2000s. After that, I moved to Austin, Texas to pursue a Master of Social Work at the University of Texas at Austin. And that's where I really started getting involved with Campus Rec. I started as an intramural sports official, supervised Oscee Wheatfall as an intramural sports official at UT Austin. And then after I graduated, I was an intern for intramural sports at NC State for a year. And then I moved back to Texas. I was a sport club coordinator, then promoted to assistant director of club sports at Texas Tech. And then I moved to Austin, Texas to be the assistant director of sport clubs for a couple of years. And now I am at the University of Arkansas, assistant director for UREC Sports. And I also teach intro to social work and human diversity and social work for the School of Social Work here at the university.
Awesome. Glad to have you join us. Oscee, what about you?
So my path isn't as profound as Mr. Elliott's, but like he did mention, I'm originally from Houston, Texas. I am a Texan. I did start my undergrad career at the University of Texas at Austin with Mr. Jonathan Elliott. We have some great stories that we can get into off camera that we can talk about that helped make my experience great. Like you said, I started on the intramural side of things as an official and worked my way up into that program. From there, I parlayed that into a graduate assistantship at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So we're dealing with some winter weather here in Texas. And so I have a little bit of experience from my graduate assistant days when I did that. Out of grad school, obviously, I decided I wanted to stay in the field. And so had some opportunities and got very fortunate that Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, had a position opening. I knew some people there and some connections. We talked about Black excellence. Jared Jackson, former colleague and a friend of mine, was one that kind of provided an opportunity for me through some connections and channels. I applied and ended up being the coordinator for intramural sports there, moved my way into the assistant director for quite a few years. And then as recently about 3 years ago, I transitioned to the facility side. So now I'm the facilities operations director at Texas A&M. I've been there ever since.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter if you have any experience in cold weather, it still hits you. You're never really fully prepared. So let's hope Region 4, our colleagues are dealing with that weather. Jonathan, let's go back to you. Obviously, we're here to celebrate Black History Month. So let's start on this. What does Black History Month mean to you? How do you celebrate the month? How do you celebrate your own identity as a Black man? Talk a little bit about that for us.
You know, I think it evolves the older I get, because I think when we grow up, it's all about learning the facts. It's about learning the people, the dates. But as I've gotten older, it's more about advocacy. It's more about sharing information out. It's more about, hey, I want to learn something different, or just go more into an individual or an event just to really understand it. Because as you're growing up with history in schools and what you hear, it's sugar-coated or it's not the whole story. So for me, it's wanting to share what I've learned outwardly, but also embracing that Black history is everyone's history. There's so many touch points within Black history that share with other marginalized groups. The experiences are shared, whether you're Black, brown, LGBTQ, women's issues, all of those are connected to Black history. So for me, it's a chance to also share that, hey, we actually have a lot more in common than what we think. Just because we say it's Black history doesn't mean it's not everyone's history.
Oscee, same question to you. How do you celebrate your identity as a Black man? I mean, and what's the importance of Black History Month for you?
Yeah, so and I'll start with that second part. I mean, the importance is it kind of obviously puts on the forefront of everyone's mind. To me, Black history should be celebrated year round. I mean, I understand having a month for it in February kind of allows folks to do like Jonathan said, depending on what age level you're at, some type of surface level stuff, so you can get some introduction as to what things are done. And he mentioned a lot of it is kind of, for lack of a better term, whitewashed in terms of the things they do tell you, the things you aren't aware of. And so at least it gives folks an opportunity to initiate some conversations, whether they be comfortable or uncomfortable in that situation. Like Jonathan said, as you get older, you start looking at things in a different perspective. And so for me, it is education of myself and then having a conversation with folks in terms of, you know, impactful things that you can do to, to be allies to further progress the Black narrative in different situations like that. Now, once again, that's not welcome by everyone, but I do see myself as a opportunity to provide for individuals, especially being at a PWI, predominantly white institution. There's not many of us that can tell that story and have an opportunity to. So opportunities like this is one way to celebrate it. I'm going to take every chance I can to be a part of explaining our story, explaining our narrative, just in hopes of if somebody else is looking for someone to relate to, these opportunities like this can do that. And then every day, just, you know, putting my best self forward, best foot forward. I'm trying to be the best version of me to give someone just an example of given opportunity, we can do some great things. And so trying to make sure, fair or not, that I carry that mantle so that others coming beneath me and before me can be proud of the things that we're doing.
Awesome. One of the questions that I always have on the list to ask participants of this conversation, but never quite get to, is talking a little bit about the strategies that you at your institution are doing, or maybe personally, or even outside of that. Jonathan, I want to talk with you. You mentioned a course that you teach at the University of Arkansas, but thinking back to the Region 4 conference, I know you had a presentation about civil discourse. So talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing at the University of Arkansas to promote racial justice, and maybe inside the department and outside.
Sure. So within our university recreation department, we do offer monthly EDI conversations, presentations with our student employees. So it ranges in topics from discussing social justice definitions, like what do these words mean? You keep hearing these terms tossed out, but do you understand what it means outside of a hashtag? And so for me, it's making the content relatable, because social justice, it's like the way that it's presented, it's very overwhelming. It's something that is heavy, but when you actually dissect it and break it down, these are things that people experience every day. And we can talk about the different isms, where it's classism, where it's racism, sexism. So I think it's important to teach these students these lessons because it's applicable for life. It's something that you have to be intentful and say that this isn't only just about your job. This is just how to have a conversation with people outside of work, how to have these conversations with people who don't look like you or who may not have the same beliefs. And so it's more about having that light switch and telling them, look, there's more to you than your position. You're still a person. So how can I get you ready? How can I get you ready to interact with people and understand why it's important to be empathetic and to understand someone else's struggle and position? So those are some of the things we do here at the University of Arkansas with our student employees. Is just like you have to get comfortable having that conversation offline, because we get so used and comfortable tweeting, texting, retweeting things and thinking that's the end all be all of our conversation, and so quick to want to cancel somebody that it's more to it. That it doesn't work like that in real life. You just can't cancel someone who may work with you and say, I'm not talking to you. It doesn't work that way. So how can we get through that? How can we get through that conflict and have the conversation? Because that's where structural change can start, is by having those conversations.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds really great. Oscee, what about you? What are y'all doing at Texas A&M with EDI type of work?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, everything's have to start somewhere. So I think one of the first things we did, James Nash Jr., kind of help, along with Miranda Price at our university, help kind of start our DEI committee. From there, they develop a DEI calendar where there are different things, from presentations from folks across campus on microaggressions, like Jonathan said, basically breaking down DEI and what that means and how it's applicable to you. From there, we've had podcast series and different readings that we talk about and discuss as a group. From there, they've even had different situations to where they've given opportunities for our student groups, like for an in-service, they'll come talk to those students and work them through and walk them through different activities just to kind of get them familiar and acclimated with. Obviously, like Jonathan said, it is some hard conversation, things people aren't used to because this affects your everyday life, but just trying to expose them as much as possible. We've taken a look at hiring committees and been intentional with the people we put on those committees and revamping the questions that we ask. I know for my area in particular, it starts small level, but with our grad assistants, I've Josh Hamilton, who used to be a colleague in this field, I follow him on different social medias. And one of the things that resonated with me was breaking down these systemic, traditional ways of hiring and traditional concepts with that. So just a small thing we can do is giving the candidates questions beforehand, like having the best opportunity possible to prepare, and then kind of getting out of that old thought mindset of thinking about the word fit. To him, fit applies if it's great and all, but depending on the culture and the environment you cultivate, fit could just be another cog in the machine. So folks of diversity wouldn't necessarily fit in that culture, would have to acclimate, not be themselves. So kind of breaking down that and thinking about how that actually relates to our area and things like that. And then just having conversations with people. I think more people are inclined to have those conversations that they're once afraid of. I know it's not our jobs to educate everyone, but I do, if you come to me genuinely with some questions and want to have an open dialogue, I'm more than willing to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, I think lots of common things amongst what both of y'all are saying. I think the one thing is making that continual, it can't just be at the start of the fall semester, kind of checking off that box of diversity training. I think it sounds like what both of y'all are doing is having that either on a monthly basis or a continual basis of having that conversation and trying to keep this topic relevant. I think the worry is, the stuff that happened, over the summer, there was that movement and then it stopped. And I appreciate that y'all are continuing to keep that conversation moving forward. We'll transition here a little bit, Oscee. We'll start with you, and talking about, you've mentioned, you used to work for Jonathan, and you mentioned Jared Jackson as well. Talk a little bit about the importance of representation, maybe specific to our field and campus recreation. How important is it for you to see Black professionals as you kind of come up in the field? And then on the flip side, for you being that Black professional, the importance for those students following behind you?
Yeah, representation matters. It affords a level of comfortability with you so that hey, if I'm aspiring to be a certain somewhere, there's someone who did it, so someone I can relate to. There's something to be said to having someone who looks like you, may talk like you, walk like you, and have these similar experiences to where you can lean on and get advice. There's only so much someone can do for you if they don't share your experience. And so the folks, like I mentioned, the Jareds, the Jonathan, they make it come to me and make it know it's all right for me to be myself. And that if I work hard and bust my tail, like there's opportunity awaiting for me. And so it provides, like I say, that goal for you to shoot for and to continuously push. And then I think in my field, starting with intramural sports, there is a bigger amount of representation simply because there's a lot of folks who start on the sports side. On the facility side, I'm finding just as many and some more. But I think it's a continual push that some folks are feeling stuck. So we're starting to lose folks. And so my point is to continuously push forward, because I know what it did for me, having Jonathan and Jared and James Nash and all these other folks like a Tony Clemens to look forward to, and to kind of see in those higher positions that, I can do this too. So there could be someone else coming up, whether it be a student or some other person in the field, like, hey, OC's doing it, so maybe there's an opportunity for me too, or just being a resource for people. So it's great to have it. You need it, and just to show people that it actually can be done, because sometimes people seeing things and manifesting it goes a long way in their mind. Yeah,
Jonathan, same general question to you, but maybe from a different perspective, that again, your words, been in the field a little bit longer, and maybe reflecting back on your ownership of that role as being that Black professional with some of those up and coming young professionals.
I think for me, I had to get comfortable being the lone wolf as far as being the only Black person on a staff and having to figure out how to navigate yourself. And there are some times where you won't see yourself in your department, but there may be other individuals within different departments across campus. So for me, it was making those connections outside my apartment too, because you need to see yourself to believe in yourself in a sense. And so for me, I'm still in contact with my mentor from undergraduate days when I was working as an orientation leader. And for 20 some years, that same contact, that same mentor is still he's still present. And so you need to have someone, I wouldn't say who isn't like you, but looking outward for other people in different departments, divisions, that's some gold in that. You have people who have navigated higher education for years, but just because they don't work in recreation, we may not get to connect with them. And so for me, it's taking upon myself to go out and find that mentor if there isn't enough there. But even what Oscee said now, yes, seeing the youth movement in campus rec, now me and him are the old heads when it comes to being people who, people look up to for questions, for guidance. And Josh Yamerson was a good example. But whenever I go to these symposiums and these NIRSA conferences, it's gotten younger. And I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. Let me introduce myself. I'm like, where are these people coming from? So, but it's also something that's instinctive too, because for me, I want to guide and mentor as many people as I can, because because when they look at us, they're like, hey, I want to be like Oscee, or Oscee works facilities. Like, I've never seen a Black person in facilities, or let alone, because again, that representation matters.
Right.
Seeing Black professionals in aquatics, outdoors, it's not a lot. So we don't want to see that, okay, sports is your only limit to be successful in campus rec. That's not the truth. But if the numbers don't reflect that, how can we change?
And Jonathan's point is so prevalent. I mean, going to these conferences, I make it a point to, especially if a young Black African-American person comes to talk to me, I'm going to hold a conversation and try to give them as many free gems as I can, because I know it would have done a lot for me and has done a lot for me. And so whether they want to hear it or not, I'll kind of take it out upon myself to have that. And then it's great the energy that they give, because they're so excited and so enthused to being here. And like Jonathan said, once upon a time, we were on the very young side of things, and somehow that flipped overnight. And so when these students come up to us, it's very refreshing to see that energy in their eyes and let them know, hey, here's an opportunity. And I'll make sure to give them a card to say, hey, keep in touch with me if you need something. I know him, her, and her. And so they can get in touch with me if you need something. Then when they do apply for things, you look for those names to try to remember those persons. Because unfortunately not, we have to do a lot of that promoting and that hiring within ourselves to make sure those folks are getting a great opportunity to kind of advance themselves. So just kind of checking in and keeping in with them, I think goes a long way, just so they may not be as comfortable forming that relationship, but you can initiate it and start it from there.
Sure. And obviously, we'll stick with you as we kind of transition a little bit. You're kind of alluding right to that. What is some advice, maybe one or two tangible action items that you can provide to young aspiring Black professionals for them to follow in your footsteps or to be successful in our field?
Yeah. The first thing I can do is, hey, it sounds small, but set goals. I mean, it gives you something to attain to and something to kind of check in with yourself to see where you're at a certain amount of time. Obviously, the path for where you want to get can not go as fast as you want to, but persevere and know that eventually, whether you have to go the Jonathan Elliott route, where you take multiple institutions to get to where you want to be, or you get fortunate in myself and can stay in one place upon there, there's a pathway for you to find where you want to get to if you persevere. The other thing I would say is make connections. And I know we talk a lot, since it's Black History Month, we're celebrating Black excellence and talking about that. Yes, there's something to be said to making connections within your community, but don't be afraid to make those outside of the community, because fair or not, some of those folks hold the power, hold the key So you don't want to ingratiate yourself just with the Black community, because the folks outside of that are some of the ones making decisions. And so until you get your seat at the table, you have to make sure that those same individuals know your name and know exactly what you're capable of doing. So take advantage of those opportunities to meet others outside of you.
Jonathan, same to you. What advice do you have for young aspiring Black professionals?
Self-care, self-care, self-care. Summer 2020 was emotionally, spiritually, physically draining for a lot of people, but it seemed as though every summer there was something significant that happened. Some sort of shooting that involved a loss of life. And it's gonna impact you, especially if you're the lone person in your department, because you start to think, wow, does anyone really truly understand how I feel right now? And it's a two-part conversation. You have to communicate that outwardly so people do understand, but you can't get to that point if you don't take care of yourself first. And so you have PTO for a reason. If there's ever a point when you just need to take a half day or a day off, take the day off. You can't do it by yourself. So take that rest, take that care. And then once you get to that 100%, or maybe it's not even 100%, maybe some days it's 75, and that is only as good as you can get. But take that 75% and continue to have those conversations so people can understand. So when this thing, because it's going to happen to our students who work in our facilities and our programs, those same Black and brown students feel the same way that you do as a professional. And so it's 360. So you don't, not only do you have to be strong for yourself, you have to be strong for them. So, but it's also having those conversations with those students, sending that email, hey, just checking in, how you doing? Mm-hmm. I'm hurting just as much as you are. You okay? That kind of intentionality is what's needed so students feel connected. And so you can do that for them. Also make sure you can do it for yourself.
Sure.
I mean, I wish I could like, retweet, post, all that stuff Jonathan just said, because that stuff is so prevalent for everybody today, and it's really important, especially in our community where it's not outwardly talked about enough. And so what Jonathan said trumps a lot of things of what I said, and I think a lot of people should heed that message. I know I need to do a better job of it myself. I saw something where it says the listener sometimes needs someone to listen to them. I do a lot of listening to folks, but not allowing folks to listen to me to make sure I'm okay is where I need to work on and get better at.
And just to piggyback off of Oscee, you know, it's cyclical. You know, we're so used to being automated in the grind that 8 to 5, you got to show up to work. You can't take time off for yourself. I'm not saying that every department is that way, but that's just how capitalism is. I didn't think we're going to get to that point. Sorry, you know, I teach, but you know, but the grind of it can, I mean, when you get immersed in the grind, the self-care, you so immune and numb to the stress, you don't even know. And so, yeah, take that step back and say, look, I just need some time. Take that PTO. If not, you're going to lose it. So, yeah.
I'm gonna cut that clip and we'll just play that on loop. We'll get y'all out of here on this. And again, I posed this question acknowledging that white people, non-people of color need to do the work. We need to do the self-education. So I asked this question kind of with that caveat. I hope we're not making it seem like we're asking you to tell us what to do. Yeah. But what maybe advice or insight, what can non-Black folks do to be better allies or accomplices as we pursue, you know, a world of racial justice? Jonathan, why don't you start with either one?
I can start it. You can, you know, this can be like an alley-oop. So I think for me, be intentional to purposely mentor someone who doesn't look like you. Because from being that student who 20 years ago was intimidated, wasn't quite sure how to speak up and asked to be mentored, but also if they didn't look like me, it was more like, how's that ask going to be received? And so if you are a non-person of color, just know that you hold that power to have that conversation, to reach out and be a mentor. Because just because I'm Black doesn't mean I'm limited to only being mentored by Black people. Sure. I mean, there's more to it than that. So step outside and expand your levels of comfort. go ahead and really be purposeful and intentful to recruit mentees who don't look like you, because they can help educate you on some things where you need to grow in some areas too. So it's a win-win kind of relationship. So I think for me, be intentional. You know, I know I keep saying that, but it's a simple concept. If your actions are intentful, everything else will follow along with it.
And that's great advice. And my thing, I like to sum it up in 3 easy words: listen, educate, participate. Listen to those who don't look like you and listen to their stories, because all knowledge is good knowledge. Educate yourself. There are numerous podcasts, books, readings, short articles, anything you can find at the tip of your fingers about simple Google search to kind of inform you more and make you have a better understanding of where folks are coming from. Then participate. When your institution or your program has a certain type of presentation they're putting on, attend it. Have a dialogue with someone. You know, discussion is the best key for you to figure out someone's story and hear where they're coming from and how those things kind of shape them. And don't be afraid to. I mean, it is, like I said, uncomfortable for a lot of people, but I think we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable in order for us to kind of push past this. And so doing those 3 things, I think, will help a lot of people kind of get started and get along the way. And from there, you can kind of do what you want with it.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. This was great. I hope anybody takes something away from this, but at least if we've impacted, I've enjoyed chatting with you. So I know I've certainly been impacted. So thanks, Jonathan, Oscee. Region 4, tune in and keep your eyes open for more episodes as we continue to celebrate the Black and African American excellence we have here in Region 4. Stay tuned and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yep. Anytime.